Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a review of Gladiator of Pompeii, or simply just called Pompeii if it's looking at the original title. So Gladiator of Pompeii was recently released in the UK, but it's actually a 2007 mini-series just called Pompeii. And if you are a fan of the HBO series Rome, alternatively the series Spartacus, you may be interested in this mini-series. Now, it certainly isn't as graphic as either of those two series. You do have some violence in it, and there is some very mild nudity, but it's nowhere in the sort of realms, as I say, of either Rome or Spartacus. So, in case you're not up with your history, this tells a tale of a doomed Roman city, Pompeii, which sat under the sort of Mount Vesuvius, which was an active volcano which exploded and erupted and essentially killed the majority of the inhabitants. But this really is a sort of tale of what's happening sort of before that actually happened and up into the actual eruption itself. Now, the weird thing about this one, when you first start watching it, I'll call it a film, although it technically is a mini-series, but in the UK it's packaged as a film, so that's what I'll be calling it. It's actually top and tailed by a sort of modern, sort of overreaching story, which I didn't really understand the point of. Apparently there's some sort of Mount Vesuvius is kind of having some sort of some activity, and for some reason this sort of story top and tails the original, the actual Roman story, the actual historical story. It's completely pointless. Once you get past once the Roman story is actually finished, I just turned this off, to be honest. I wasn't interested in this kind of like stupid love story that it has in this top and tail segments. So just ignore that. But the actual story really is an ensemble piece. Now, as I say, the UK version is called Gladiator of Pompeii, so that makes you think it focuses on a gladiator. There's a main gladiator that's called Darius, and it kind of does, but it's more of an ensemble piece than a story about one particular character. I mean, there are gladiators in it, and he's certainly the most prominent, and I guess he's the nearest thing to a sort of a lead protagonist. But it's really, the story is not necessarily about him specifically, but more just the lives of various different people who live in this Roman city. Now, the first thing I would say is this film, or this version of the film I have seen, is redubbed. So it kind of, it's a little bit jarring initially because the audio is obviously overdubbed. I'm guessing, you know, the original audio was fairly poor. It was strong accents or what have you, or even if it was, I don't even know if it was recorded in English. I get the impression some bits were in English and some bits weren't. But it's basically been redubbed, so that kind of the performances by the actors are kind of seem a bit stilted because of that. So it's very difficult to comment on the acting because obviously all the lines are redubbed. So it kind of seems pretty wooden, but that's possibly because of the audio on it. So really, it follows the story, I say, of a gladiator called Darius, and he gets sort of sold into slavery, and within seconds of seeing another female slave, they're in love and sort of you know, declaring themselves eternally, you know, partners or what have you. But you've also got the sort of it follows the story of various other people as well, including the sort of the kind of the noble sort of Romans, you know, who are sort of presiding over this city. There's another female slave who's like a Christian, and her sort of group of Christians, along with various other sort of people as well. Now, it starts off relatively slow, and the main criticism I have of this series is it's quite soapy. It comes across as like a sort of a Roman soap opera initially. And it's 3 hours long, the version I saw anyway, and that could have been way cut down. It's not really needed to be that long. Obviously, this was meant to be a mini series, so obviously there are quite a lot of filler, I suppose. But as a movie, it kind of drags quite badly because there's a lot of not a lot happening in the sort of, certainly the first half. There are a few gladiator matches in it, but they, as I say, mentioned before, they're not nearly as kind of violent or realistically depicted, you know, than other sort of like, you know, modern sort of contemporary Roman series or films or what have you. He's meant to be this amazing gladiator, this Darius character, but the fights are fairly poorly staged, I would have to say. But what I would say, when the actual volcano erupts, and it's about maybe the last hour, that looks awesome. It's absolutely an awesome, done on a TV budget, I suppose. So the effects are really, really good, and there's some great stunt work, and you know, buildings exploding and things like that. So that was really an exciting, you know, an exciting scene, and obviously a long scene. But it's really everything up and leading to that. It is kind of not quite as good, unfortunately, I don't think. But it was obviously, this being, you know, obviously based on history. I'm not sure exactly how, you know, how true the actual stories of these individual characters are, whether they're actually based on historical people, or whether it's just a sort of a fictional story based on characters that's set in this kind of obviously a real life tragedy. But it was okay. I mean, it was a bit long. It didn't need to be this long. I think it would have been better if they wanted to release it as a film. Would have been to have cut it down and maybe make it you know, a 2-hour film, and it would have gone on a lot better pace. It's still not going to help some of the sort of the acting in it, or some of if they're going to continue with this audio dub, and also, as I say, some of the sort of the sort of fighting and things like that is fairly poorly choreographed, I would say. But let's say, but on the flip side of that, the stunts when the cities kind of get destroyed are pretty damn awesome. And you know, I have to say that it maybe doesn't look like it was the safest shoot. There's one thing where there's the kind of the main guy Darius is climbing up this wall, and there's all this fiery debris come down, and a bit of fire goes in the guy's hair, and you can see it's genuinely burning his hair, and his hair's on fire. So I don't know if the how lax they were with the sort of the safety on this film, but nevertheless, I'll give this film a 5.5 out of 10. It was probably a little bit better than average for your average TV show, purely because of that last hour of destruction when the Mount Vesuvius explodes. So it might be worth checking out just for that. But to completely skip the initial parts, it doesn't make the modern bits just completely not worth watching. So there you go. Have you seen it? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.